upon a time, when a farmer was walking around his farm, he saw an egg lying on the ground. He thought it must be one of his chicken's eggs, so he picked it up and he placed it on his hen's nest, hoping that one day it would hatch into a beautiful chick. When all the eggs began to hatch, this particular egg, out came an eagle. But this eagle thought he was a chicken. So he scratched the dirt like the other chicken. He stayed in the enclosure of his farm like those other chicken. And he never spread his majestic wings to go out because he thought he was a chicken. One sunny day, he saw an eagle flying majestically in the sky with a big fish on its talons from a nearby river. Now our chicken eagle longingly muttered, "Wow, I wish I was an eagle." Unfortunately, a rooster overheard him and said, "You are a chicken. Stop pretending you're an eagle." So he lowered his head and went back, scratching on the ground for little crumbs. And although he felt something was missing in his life, after hearing the rooster, he never spread his wings to enjoy nature. So he spent the rest of his life cooped in that tiny farm, and he never lived happily ever after. God designed us, His church, to be more powerful than an eagle. The gates of hell could not even prevail against us. So how can we not end up squandering our potential like our chicken eagle? That's our topic today, and also the last message in our 5-sermon series, Back to Basics. The last among 4 areas, if you want to be a well-balanced disciple maker, is Bible instruction. Instruction or Bible knowledge. By the way, it's easy to remember these 4 areas because it's spelled W-I-F-E or wife. Aside from this 4-legged stool analogy, another way to illustrate the importance of balancing these 4 areas is this cars 4 tires. They are all equally important. Nothing is more superior nor inferior. If one of the 4 is missing, this car cannot go very far. Now, in the same way, if you want to reach or achieve authentic discipleship, all 4 must be present. Today, we will see the importance of biblical instruction. The first clue why biblical instruction is essential is the commands in the Bible. For example, Jesus' swan song in Matthew 28:19 and 20 says that our goal is not just to bring people to initial saving faith, but teaching them to obey everything I or Jesus have commanded you. Now, the Apostle Paul also commanded the same thing to Titus. He writes, "But as for you, teach what accords with sound doctrine." Now, the early church realized the importance of this command, and that is why, after individuals placed their faith in Jesus as their Messiah or Christ, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. And because of their constant learning, the early church turned the world upside down, even though they were mainly of the lower class at the beginning. Through Bible instruction, they learned their high eagle-like status as God's children. So instead of languishing like chicken, they started soaring like eagles. My friend, do you go to a church where biblical instruction is a priority? Or do you listen to a priest's monologue or a teacher who discourages you from opening or interpreting the Bible? Go to the first one. Another way to show the importance of biblical instruction is by illustrating the effects of incomplete teaching. For example, Ephesians 4:11-12 says, "And he gave some apostles, and some prophets, and some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers." These are God's gifts for the church. Now, what are their job descriptions? According to verse 12, there seems to be three as indicated by the three prepositions for. Now, the first job description is for the perfecting of the saints. That means to equip Christians. Now, their second job is for the work of the ministry. Now, to do the work of the ministry means they preach, visit people in their homes, visit the sick in the hospitals, do Bible studies, and many other ministries. Is it correct so far? Now, their third job is for the edifying of the body of Christ. That means to build up the church. Now, look closely at the chart. This is the ideal picture of a model church for hundreds of years. But what if I tell you that this model is wrong? You see, this is an example of an inadequate translation that produced a flawed mindset. So, what's a more accurate translation? Now, if you compare the original Greek and English translation in verse 12, the Greek uses two different prepositions, pros and eis. But the KJV translated both into one preposition, for. Result? It produced chickens instead of eagles. The more accurate translation is to translate pros into to. So, to equip the saints. That's the job description of the people in verse 11. And then translate eis as for the purpose of. In short, the saints are equipped for the work of the ministry. And the second eis as still conveying purpose or result. Hence, for building up the church. Most newer translations do this. Now, when you compare these two models, you will immediately realize why Model 1 produced chickens while Model 2 produced eagles. With Model 1, only the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers are expected to do the work of the ministry. The Christians in Model 1, like the eagle on that farm, the majority are expected to just sit and soak every Sunday without spreading their wings. But in Model 2, this is more biblical because the reason Christians are equipped to do the work of the ministry is because all Christians have spiritual gifts. Romans 12 and 1 Corinthians 12 are just two of the many passages in the entire New Testament that prove that. And like powerful wings, God expects that we use them to change the world. This is precisely what the early church did. Now let's compare the two models more. Those who follow Model 1 view their pastors as players and members as spectators. They sit as they watch their pastors do ministry week after week after week. Result? Burnout. Also, the pastors neglect their family because they are out doing ministry all the time. But those who follow model number 2 view their pastors as coaches and members as players. He provides training and direction. Result? Pastors are free to do more important things like prayer and the preaching of the word, as Acts chapter 6 verses 2 to 4 says. Also, they have a healthier family because he does not spend all the time doing ministries. Now, how about the members? Members of Model 1 are prone to boredom and backsliding because they are untapped. They just sit there Sunday after Sunday. Also, they are often disillusioned because they expect the pastors to visit them, but the pastors cannot because they have increasing ministries. As a result, members drop out and look for another church. But members on model number 2, every member is happily involved in some form of ministry. Everybody is taking care of everybody, not just the pastor. And as a result, there's a low dropout in model number 2. As a whole, Model 1 churches experience minimal growth or plateaued attendance. And once the pastor is gone, all the ministries are gone. In short, Model 1 is disobedience to God's design. But in Model 2, the growth potential is unlimited. Even if the pastor is gone, ministries will still go on because they are not dependent on the pastor. They are now eagles. Why? Because Model 2 is obedience to God's design. That's how vital correct biblical instruction is. My friend, are you in a church like this? Now that you know the importance of correct biblical instruction, how can you apply it? How do you know your instruction tire is moving forward towards B, L, D, and R? In the first stage, just like in the other 3 tires, keep attending both the big and small groups. Why? Because instruction is present on both big and small groups. And when you become a believer and ready to become a learner, start participating. You see, there's something about participatory learning that propels your faith into newer heights. Romans 15:14 talks about our ability to admonish one another. Now, if you want to see how this works, we encourage you to attend a Mosaic small group because teaching and admonishing one another happens every meeting. But that's not all. There's a more exciting level. The next is to start leading in teaching the Bible. This stage is especially relevant to those who have the gift of teaching. I am reminded of the warning in Hebrews chapter 5 verse 12. It says, "For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food." Oh no, don't remain on the baby level. Move on, soar to the sky like an eagle. You will indeed soar, especially when you reach the last stage, namely finding someone to train or equip. And we provide training for you on how to do this. If you want to experience how these 4 areas of discipleship play out in your weekly schedule, I'm referring to your worship, instruction, fellowship, and evangelism or wife, keep attending Mosaic. I assure you, it's more manageable than you think. Remember, the goal is not just to minister, but to make disciples. Again, the goal is not just to make ministers, but to make disciples. It's okay to be in whatever stage you are in right now. But what's not okay is to become stagnant in that stage. So, will you take the challenge and go to the next level? If yes, what specific action will you do this week? soar like an eagle.